A lawyer is calling for an overhaul of the government's artificial limb service, saying amputees here are receiving substandard treatment compared to other countries. Checkpoint's looked at this a bit over the past year or two. There are about 4,000 amputees in New Zealand, the majority of whom are under the care of the New Zealand Artificial Limb Service, or NZALS, the only provider with contracts with district health boards and ACC. But some amputees have refused to be treated by the Crown Agency, saying despite spending years in its care, they never got limbs that fitted properly. Continuing her investigation, here's Michelle Cook.
I have never had comfortable socket in this country in 20 years of being an amputee. It has given me ulcers, pain, suffering, and not even the ability to be able to walk without excruciating pain.
That's Robin Oneleg. He officially changed his name after losing his leg in a car accident 20 years ago. Like many amputees, his care is funded through ACC, which has only ever contracted the New Zealand Artificial Limb Service as a provider for prosthetic services. Robin Oneleg says he was forced into the system because as a Ministry of Health or ACC amputee client, NZALS is the only option.
You know, I'm just one amputee in the 4,000. From what I believe, there are many amputees in this position, and many of them have got to the point where they're fed up with having to waste their time going to a limb centre, wherever it may be, and not actually walking away comfortable and happy.
Lawyer Martha Coleman is representing a number of amputees. She says some prosthetists do not have the skills they need and are underqualified to do the job of a clinician. About 50% of NZALS's prosthetists, the people who evaluate, fabricate and fit artificial limbs, hold degree qualifications. The rest hold diplomas. In countries like Canada, the United Kingdom and the United States, prosthetists are required to hold at least a degree.
If other jurisdictions believe that a degree, or in the case of North America, a postgraduate degree is the minimum qualification, it is unfathomable why it should be a lesser qualification in New Zealand. The answer must be that they're not doing a good enough job, and it's got to change.
Ms Coleman has written to ACC, the Health Minister and the Social Development and Disabilities Minister Carmel Sepuloni, requesting they make it mandatory for prosthetists to hold a degree. She says nurses, physiotherapists and doctors all require a degree qualification.
There is no reason why in the prosthetic industry should be treated any differently. Doesn't happen in other health industries, shouldn't happen here.
Ms Coleman is also calling for the industry to be regulated under the Health Professionals Competency Assurance Act. The New Zealand Orthotics and Prosthetics Association appoints members with degrees and diplomas, unlike Australia, where those with diplomas can still practice but struggle to access funding. NZALS CEO Sean Gray says while his staff hold a mix of diplomas and degrees, they are all qualified to work with amputees.
There are no people on our team that are not qualified to do the job. Everybody has qualifications, and in saying that, a large part of our prosthetists are Polytech or CIT qualified, and I believe that those types of qualifications, that all New Zealanders should be able to rely on them both now and into the future. You know, that part of my workforce are doing a great job.
A diploma in prosthetics was offered in New Zealand in the past, but there is now no degree or diploma offered here, which means New Zealand is increasingly reliant on an international workforce. Checkpoint has spoken to several amputees who, after years under NZALS's care, have refused to return, and ACC eventually agreed to send them to one of the few private providers in the country. But they say they had to fight to go elsewhere. Mr Robin Oneleg needed a new leg about a year ago and says NZALS has tried but failed to make one that fitted properly in that time.
I have been on relatively strong painkillers just to be able to survive with the pain and the suffering and the stress that I'm under. I use a wheelchair. I have home help provided for me by ACC because I'm not in a position where I'm capable to do it all on my own without a fitting prosthetic leg.
ACC's latest contract with NZALS has been in place for a decade, but it is now redesigning it and plans to put it out to tender next year. Mr Gray says his staff work closely with the universities and academia to integrate their innovative thinking.
the whole team, I can put my hand on my heart and say we come in every day to help people. And so when we hear these stories, which are isolated and few, they're really disappointing to the whole team. And so we do our best every day to make sure that, you know, we are up to date on our training, that we know what new technologies are out that can help them.
Robin One Leg's request to be seen by a private provider was approved last month, but he says it took 20 years to get to this point. For Checkpoint, Michelle Cook.
Lots of feedback coming in from people with the experience of NZALS. We will call you if we haven't already. Meanwhile, the Minister of Health, David Clark, says he's considering a response to Martha Coleman's letter and won't comment. In the meantime, the Minister responsible for NZALS, Carmel Sepuloni, says she's also considering a response to the issues raised by Ms Coleman and declined an interview. She said in a statement, the concerns raised by Ms Coleman are complex and require careful consideration, and she will thoroughly explore them.